It's a beer podcast, not always about beer. So there's that.
Well, welcome to Florida's Drinking Report, brought to you by Sailfish Brewing Company. I'm your captain, Dave Boucher, joined again by Brian Tonneson. Welcome back.
Hey-o. Welcome.
Missed you last week in Key West.
Missed you guys. Did not miss Key West all that much. I heard it was very hot, and also...
Not as hot as last year.
Okay.
Not as hot last year. But
right.
Brian Miller did an excellent job filling in for you. And Emily did her normal antics on the podcast, and Emily's podcast.
Brian Miller was excellent on Emily's podcast. It was just phenomenal. Well, he's easier on the eyes. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, probably a lot more entertaining. Probably could put more beer down than I could, but...
That morning, not so much. He was 50-50 we were going to go or not.
It was my favorite part, not necessarily being in the show, but watching you guys go from zombies to like humans 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
It was an
the evolution happened very quickly after a few beers.
It was the most Key West shit I've ever seen in my life.
Sunrise City and light tackle will get you there.
Yeah, that's exactly. Well, it had to be a lot of light tackles.
Well, Miller got me with a lot of Jameson the night before.
Well,
so, yeah.
In my house, we call that the Brian Miller.
It's
an
Brian Miller.
Enormous cup of Jameson with a Coke back.
Yep. And I've grown to love the Coke back now recently. So
it's a remarkable thing how that becomes a thing. Yeah.
We're joined today by Kenny Sincere and Mike Holliday. Guys, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you being on the podcast.
Dig it, man.
So this is one of those podcasts that are not always about beer, but we're going to talk about our second favorite thing to do, which is fishing today.
It's awesome.
So appreciate you guys being on today. Kind of carrying forward with the fact that it's still a drinking report. What's everybody drinking today?
Well, we are at Sailfish, Fort Pierce, my absolute favorite place in the world to be. After this past weekend of watching NFL football, I'm drinking my new football beer, Light Tackle.
Solid choice.
4.2.
Solid choice.
Drink 100 of them.
I'm pretty sure we have at some point, too.
Yes, that sounds about right.
We got plenty.
Kenny, what do you got there?
I got Sailfish Lager. We just canned about 145 cases of it this morning, so super fresh, ice cold off the line. So
put a 2-hour-old beer?
2 hours, maybe 2.5 by now. Getting started. So
going somewhere special tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't get any fresher than that, so why not?
Awesome. And Mike, I see you are also drinking a lager with ice in it.
I am.
So what's the deal with the ice?
Well, a couple things. First, I'm going with a lager because it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm a pace car, not a race car.
I like that.
If we were a little later in the day, I would be doing either the Flounder Pounder or the Hazy IPA. Because I like getting up there quick, you know.
Oh, man.
Learned a lot about Mike already today.
Would have been way off the rails if this was a Flounder Pounder podcast.
Dude, you got to be careful with that stuff.
No, for sure. It's 9.7 and drinks like a 2% beer.
You'll feel something cold on your shoulder, look over, and it's the floor. but yeah, so ice in my beer. It's kind of an old story. I used to drink beer a lot. Going back into, this goes back to like the 90s. And I drank 2 beers every day. I always drank Bud Lights every day.
Okay.
And when I was drinking heavy, I would drink Heinekens, but there were no craft beers back then. One day I was having 3 and my wife was giving me grief for it. And, I'm like, I'm 40 years old and you're giving me grief for having a 3rd beer on a weekday. And sometimes I need a 3rd beer. Sometimes I want a 3rd beer. Sometimes I had a good day. Sometimes I had a bad day.
Yeah.
But I'm not,
depends on the day.
She's drinking wine. I'm not counting your glasses of wine.
No.
I don't really care.
Sounds very judgy.
Yeah. If you're going to have a 3rd one, if it makes you happy, have 4.
Those damn glasses of wine just never seem to add up in any sort of number. Yeah.
Like they don't count.
It's like on the same one for the next
entire
8
bottle,
hours.
yeah.
So what I ended up doing was Sierra Nevada had come out with a beer called Torpedo, which was like a 9%, 8.9%.
Oh yeah, very familiar with that. Yep.
A strong IPA, and so I had a fridge in my garage, and when that's where I kept all my beer. And when I knew it was going to be a 3-beer night, I would drink those. But when you drink those in the summer, they're so thick, they were just too heavy for me. So I put some ice in it, and the ice would kind of melt and water them down a little bit.
Yeah.
And now I can't drink any beer without ice in it. Middle of the winter, I still got to have ice in my beer.
I mean, in Florida, it's not a bad solution.
Well, your beer's always the same temperature when you have ice in it. That's
waters
for
it down,
sure.
yeah. Definitely, it's very responsible.
And I like the heavier alcohol beers myself.
Yeah, more flavor.
So I just put a little bit of ice in there, waters it down a little bit, makes it a little easier to drink.
Yeah.
It makes it last a little bit longer as well. So
And it's a good way
I
to
can't
trick,
drink beer without
it's
it.
a good way to trick the misses. You get halfway through and you put some ice in, and all of a sudden you're still at beer
That's
one.
correct.
Yeah,
That's correct.
Great way. Yeah.
The glass is almost always full.
And that is the quintessential Florida thing. If you're a beer drinker, I'm not. This is not strange to me.
Oh,
seeing
so I'm
ice
not a
in beer.
weirdo.
You're not a
I'm
weirdo.
weirdo that-
This is very.
Wow.
This
Everybody
is,
knows I'm weirdo.
Like well, it's like 4 or 5 people in everyone's neighborhood that walk out with ice in their beer. I've seen it. Yeah.
And I have light tackle as well. Just my go-to nowadays, especially in the summertime. This just goes down fresh and clean and easy. And like Brian said, you can have 100 of them.
Right.
And
Nothing
you'll
like a nice cold beer after a nice cold beer,
still
man.
function the next day.
You're just hydrating.
Exactly.
It's
That's all it
important
is.
to hydrate.
It really is.
Well, this one is 96% water. It's about 4% alcohol. So, yeah.
I forgot to mention earlier, we actually are coming to you live from Fort Pierce today, which is another on the road.
My favorite.
Live audience in the back of us, our beautiful bar behind us right here, guys. So great to be back at home base where it all started at almost 12 years ago. So thanks for joining in and listening today. So we were very fortunate to have Mike take us out fishing a few weeks ago. And what an awesome day. I mean, did some stuff we don't normally do, learned a bunch from you about fishing, not other things, but fishing. And just a fantastic day. Put us on some snook, some tarpon, and just fantastic day. And just, that fishery so well down there.
And when we left the dock, I had no idea what we were doing at all.
But you were prepared for
I kind
a couple
of.
options.
We can go offshore. We can go inshore. We can
Yep.
go. Tarpon fishing wasn't on my plan at all until we were driving. I was heading to the inlet, and I saw a bunch of tarpon roll, and I'm like, well, let's
Yeah,
slide in there.
Kind of hard to say no to that.
What could happen? We either get bit or we don't get bit, right?
Yeah, and Kenny was like, hey, you need to reel back your thread fin. I think it's dead. And I said, no, it's fine. I'll leave it out there for 5 more minutes. And sure enough, that tarpon hit it.
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
proved wrong on that one.
Doesn't happen very often with Kenny, but he got proved wrong. So
I missed a bite, and almost immediately after,
That's
Dave was bent over.
you can't say that about any sort of outdoor sport or recreational activity. Fishing is the only one. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, but you guys caught 20 fish that day.
It's
Like,
typically,
if not more.
It's typically the person that's patient, not paying attention, doing it wrong because he's leaving the bait in the water.
So that's why I
Great.
caught the fish all day?
Yep.
Yeah.
The guy,
Awesome.
the guy messing with it all the time, knowing what he's doing, breaking them off,
Throw
pulling
them where you
hooks.
think the fish are.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I remember
Patience.
Mike said he was asking, like, what's your level of fly fishing? And I was like, he was telling some story about some guy, said he was a 10, he was really a 2. I was like, I'm probably like a 2, maybe a 1, and I turned out to be a -5 that day. So almost hit Mike with a fly when it was windy, and he looked at me like he was going to fucking kill me, and I was like, all right, man.
No.
Great day, though.
It was fun, man.
Yeah, great time.
And the whole idea is to have fun.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
Right.
If you stress about fishing, if any part of it is stressful, then you need to find something else to do.
No, that's 100% correct.
The idea is to go out there and have a good time, and the fishing are the fish are the bonus. Being on the water and seeing all the beauty of nature and just interacting with all that stuff, to me, is amazing. And I feel so fortunate that I get to see it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And once you realize that, like, this is, my phone's not ringing, nobody's bugging me, I got zero stress. All I'm really thinking about is what's going on in front of me. That's the best part of your day.
That's the most important thing. To be able to distract, to focus on one thing is such a relaxing thing. And you're thinking about 100 things at once while you're out there, but you're not thinking about anything else.
Yeah, well, none of it's about work.
Correct.
You're not thinking about work. It's all fishing related. It's the same when you're surfing. You don't think about work at all. You think about that wave. You think, am I going to be in the right spot in the lineup? Where's the wave going to break? Oh, this kid's kind of in my way. I need to get around him so I can catch it before him. You're thinking all that stuff, but you're not thinking about, somebody that's pissing you off at work or some deal you have.
People
going
think
on.
that relaxing is go sit on the beach and read a book. That's like the opposite of relaxing for me. Focus on one thing that you enjoy doing and just have it distract you from everything else.
It's the closest thing a man's going to have to heaven, because on top of everything that Mike just said, the silence. Just nothing going on. No one saying a word. It's just, how often does that happen in life right now?
I took Brian out
Yeah.
a couple months ago, and he
Yeah.
still talks about, we didn't talk to each other for 5 hours. I said, yeah, it was great, Brian.
Yeah. It was
Fantastic.
Wait. You were on a boat with Dave for 5 hours. You guys didn't talk?
Didn't say a effing word.
What does that must mean,
Wow.
Kenny?
Yeah. No. And I on the whole way back, we're flying back. Dave, this is the greatest day of my life. I might have said 4 words. What?
No. That morning, the other morning, just pulling out that sunrise coming up. And once we saw those
Great day.
tarpon, and Mike just throttled down and was like, "What do you guys want to do?" And very obvious choice there.
Yeah.
there's that freedom when you pull away from the ramp.
Yeah.
You know, you pull away and you jump up on plane and like it all just comes off your shoulders.
Right.
It rolls off.
Best feeling in the world.
It's amazing. It's amazing. My favorite part of my day is my run out, by far.
That makes sense. And, you know, speaking of that, I mean, we're so fortunate to live where we live, have the access to the fishers we have access to, and just the closeness we have to it. I mean, you know, both Mike, Ken, you guys have, you know, fished these flats for a very long time, and have you seen the changes of that, both good and bad, you know, from, you know, let's say down to Palm Beach up to, you know, Sebastian, and tell us about that, like what was like maybe, you know, 10, 20 years ago in some of these areas and where we're at now, and what you guys have seen in this area.
I mean, I really kind of jumped into the flats fish, and I'd say probably about 15 years ago, I got home from some stuff I was doing in the Marines and stuff like that, and I was working bartending, and I always loved fishing. And I ended up buying this little $5,000 Palm Beach boat with like a 70 Evinrude on it, and just getting out in Palm Beach. I lived right down there off Flagler. You know, truck got robbed every couple of weeks almost, kind of feeling. But we would get out, go to Peanut Island. Me and my buddies, no idea what we're doing, trolling out front, drinking Dale's Pale Ale like I was telling you earlier. And I kind of went back to a little bit of my memories as a kid, fly fishing out in Oklahoma, my grandma and stuff, and really started focusing on the inshore. And then that boat ended up going away, and I bought this like 14-foot Johnson skiff. And that's when I started exploring up towards this way. I'd make runs up to Little Mud, Fort Pierce. And over the years, I kind of made some other friends that knew this area. And I was fortunate to fish with those guys because they fished with this in this area, probably one of them about as long as you. I'm a newbie, way newbie compared to Mike here. And I kind of got to see the tail end of that awesome seagrass where you could guarantee a trout bite every morning. You know, I mean, catching a snook was super easy, you know, when you go out with these guys. It was, if we didn't catch 20, 30 a day, you know, that's how it should have been with 3 guys on the boat. And I watched it over a couple of years to where this last couple of years, going every weekend, making that drive up, kind of went away a little bit on that desire because it was so tough. And I'd say the last year, I think we really started seeing some comeback with grass. I started, you know, catching more redfish. I mean, we had a 3-fly redfish day not too long ago, and that was almost unheard of, I would say, 3, 4, or 5 years ago.
That was even good in the old days, 3-fly redfish. We never really had
I got
a ton
really
of
lucky
redfish.
one day. But
Even back in the, you know, back in the 70s and 80s when they netted a lot, and redfish are an easy fish to net.
yeah.
So a lot of them got thinned out pretty quickly around here.
Yeah.
You would get them, and we still get them sort of the same pattern this time of year. September and October, like starts about the full moon in September and runs to about the end of October probably. The redfish all gather in big schools on the flats. And that's when you'll find them tailing in schools and see them waking in schools. Right. Otherwise, it's sort of a onesie-twosie type thing where you see them along shorelines, you see them along docks, and it's always sort of been like that. You know, in the fall you could gather them up and whack them pretty good, but you know, most of the year you didn't catch a lot of redfish. Right. If you went up, the more you went to Vero in Fort Pierce, the more you saw them. The further north you went, the more you saw them. And the further south you got, the less you would see of them.
Yeah. I feel like it's a rite of passage for this area that you're just hooking and catching snook. I mean, Gabe, who works here, his wife said, like, showed us about 100 pictures of her as a kid growing up, and it's always like a bigger and bigger snook. Just like seems to be like the rite of passage up here.
Well, I came here in '78. I came to Jensen Beach to go to college at FIT, and you know, I was always a poor boy. And when you're a college kid, if you can supplement your meals with fish,
Right.
So I fished a lot. And you know, it eventually morphed into jobs for me.
That's great.
And I've been in the outdoor industry a long time. But the stuff back then, the fishery itself was amazing. The amount of fish, the number of big trout, the number of snook, the pompano bites in the winter, the mackerel bites on the beach. Just the amount of fish that we had here were tremendous. And the seagrass meadows, like right. Everything was a meadow of seagrass. Wow. It was 1,000 yards of grass, and on low tide, all that grass would stick up on the surface. Like Northbridge Flat here, when the tide would get low, that whole flat would just be grass.
Wow.
And anything swimming would cut a giant wake. You could see it for a mile,
right.
But you couldn't get to it because it was
right.
so shallow. And there was big potholes, and everything had to go into those potholes. If you knew that, then you just fished those potholes on that lower tide. But it was just amazing food web. In fact, I lived on Indian River Drive, and I never bought shrimp
Right.
from a tackle shop. We would make this rectangular frame with like a lawnmower handle on it and put screen across it. And we go out to the grass and you just push it and you'd walk 60 feet and then pull it up and you'd pick the shrimp out of it and put them in your bait bucket. And
It's like digging for worms.
Yeah,
when you're in the north.
it would take you about 45 minutes to load your bait bucket up with shrimp if you were going to use shrimp for bait. It was really amazing, and we had that for a long time.
Right.
And I mean, just to give you an example, when I first started guiding, I started guiding in '86, and up until about the late '90s, I would shoot for 60 snook a day.
Wow.
That's what I was shooting for on my trips, and now I shoot for 8. So that gives you an idea how
Pretty
much
dramatic difference.
how much that fishery has really changed. When you lose a grass, you lose a food web. You lose a shrimp, you lose the crabs, the worms, everything else, and you lose the fish, particularly species that hide in the grass like trout. They're an interesting species in that if you look at the juveniles, they have very dark backs and a lot of spots on them. And that's so they can hide in the grass. They want to be in the dense grass.
Right.
If you look at the adult ones, they have a very light back and very few spots because they like to sit in the sand. They sit in the sand holes, and when the fish come out of the grass, they ambush them. So if you knew that, you knew where to sort of target. If you want school fish, you go around the grass. You want bigger fish, you fish the sandy potholes.
Right.
Now everything's a sandy pothole.
Wow.
I mean, it's just a moonscape.
Right.
And our trout fishery was always very good. It was never what I would call amazing.
Okay.
The big trout fishery was amazing, probably the best in the world. But the juvenile trout, if you just want to go trout fishing in the morning, kill a couple hours, throw on topwater plugs, you're going to catch 12, 15 trout, probably. Most of them are going to be 2 to 3, 2 to 4 pounds. And now even with the grass coming back, I mean, my buddy had a 50 fish day the other day,
That's
50 fish
wild.
morning on really small trout, which is a good sign to see the grass comes back. But about 10 or 12 years ago, we lost all our grass, and in about a year's time, just disappeared. And when that disappeared, so did the trout. And since then, the best year I've had is 3 trout in a year.
Wow.
So that's how dramatic. I mean,
That's a huge shift.
probably 30% of my business was folks from Texas coming here to catch big trout.
Uh-huh.
And I don't fish any people from Texas for big trout anymore.
Man.
Because I just don't catch them. I don't see them. So it's the whole fishery has changed.
Right.
It's been this dramatic shift that the Indian River, if you don't know a lot about it, it's the average depth is 2 to 3 feet. So it's all seagrass meadow all the way across. And then you have the intercoastal channel, which is man-made. They dug that channel and they dumped the sand when they dug it on the sides, and that what creates those islands, those spoil islands.
Right.
So those are man-made as well. And basically everything was habitat.
Right.
When the grass is gone, then there's nowhere for anything to hide. So now docks are habitat, seawalls are habitat, the mangroves along the shorelines are habitat, and
Everything's
that's
kind of
about
adapts.
it.
Yeah.
And so everything sort of gravitated to the shorelines. And when they did, so did all the anglers.
Right.
And every dock doesn't have fish. So the docks that do, it got really easy for people to see. If somebody's sitting on a dock for 4 hours, there's fish there.
Right.
So, okay, now I know which docks have the fish.
Right.
So people get dialed, and the docks that do have fish just get pounded unmercifully now.
Right.
So a lot of the fish that you catch are, you'll catch a snook that have 3 holes in his mouth. It's sad. I feel really bad some days, even targeting those fish. But some of the other things, like the trout are gone, the reds are gone, but our pompano, when they come in, they don't stay around, but you do get them up on the flats where you can sight fish them now. It's pretty fun.
Ton of fun catching those
Ripping
guys.
across the sand, flashing in big schools. And we also have bonefish. You got bonefish schools now that you can go out and target bonefish, which we really didn't have. I mean, we had a school or two.
You guys had those in Stewart primarily, right?
In Stewart, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, you want to go catch bonefish tomorrow, I know exactly where to go to get them.
Gotcha.
And there's a school of 60 with, most are 2 to 4 pounds.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
probably
great.
the northernmost area with bonefish.
Yeah, I mean, I caught my first bonefish with Kenny down in right in Cudjoe, Sugarloaf area a
That
few
was a
months
couple
ago.
months ago with Scott, yeah.
It was a good time down there.
No, we've got them pompano fishing in northern Jupiter or
Seen 'em a lot pompano
Stewart.
fishing, eh?
Yeah, that's where the guys are all catching them on the beach. And I remember being down in the Keys a couple years ago. My buddy's pompano fishing up here, and he sent me pictures of bonefish, and I drove 3 hours to go not catch bonefish. So that's all. It's kind of funny how it works up here. But I think they're a different species.
There are different species of bonefish. They don't get as big, but I have caught big ones. I mean, I've caught them as big as 6 pounds here,
That's a stud.
which is
for
a
up
pretty
here.
good bonefish.
Yeah, it's a pretty big
Yeah.
fish.
But most of them that you catch are a pound or less even.
Yeah.
The fish you see on the flats are bigger. If they're not, they're going to get eaten.
Right.
Like right now, there's so many barracudas on the flats.
That's wild.
If you're a 1 pound bonefish, you're not a 1 pound bonefish for long.
Yeah, we fed some mangrove snappers to the barracudas the other day, and the kids were absolutely loving it. But right at the side of the boat, and they're definitely getting bad down in Jupiter too.
What's that attributed to with the influx of just more barracuda present and that kind of stuff?
I mean, I would just say it's habitat.
Really? Okay.
Before they couldn't swim in that grass.
Gotcha.
To swim through it. Now it's just a big.
Desert.
It's like the moon.
Gotcha.
You're just swimming over sand, and that's sort of what they like. They grow
Yeah.
up. They grow up as juveniles. They're laying in the sand and the shallow stuff, or in those potholes, or on the edges of the flats. They've always been. If you look like in Sailfish Point Flats or the J.C. Park Flats here in Fort Pierce, there's big cuts through it and with big potholes, and they would always be full of barracuda.
Really?
And you might catch a 20-pounder in there.
Huh. Damn. So, fast forward a little bit. So, one of the things you do, Mike, is outreach and engagement management for Captains for Clean Water.
That's correct.
But up until that point, maybe still, you have a writing career, and you wrote for a lot of different papers down here. So, tell us a little about that.
I
Palm
wrote
Beach
for the
Fez,
Fort Pierce paper,
back when it was called the Tribune.
Fort Pierce Tribune,
Okay.
on Edwards Road.
All right, but you wrote for the Miami Herald.
Started with Miami Herald,
Okay.
and I wrote for them for 4 years, and I did a stint at the Palm Beach Post, and I did 5 years, I think, with the Fort Pierce Tribune, and I also
Okay.
wrote for the Stewart News, and then I was an editor at Florida Sportsman, and I was the editor of Florida Fishing Weekly. I loved writing.
Oh, writing about something you love and do. I mean, it's got to be amazing.
It was great, and the only part I didn't like about it was being poor.
It's all the cool jobs that keep you poor, except for cage fighting.
Well, it was fun. It was creative. The best one I had was Fort Pierce,
Okay.
the Tribune, and I had the back page of sports on Friday. I had the whole back page colored,
Okay.
and I did all the pagination. I put every element, every word, every photo, everything on that page. I laid it out however I want. So it was very creative. I wrote a column, I wrote a fishing report, and then I wrote a main story
Okay.
every Friday.
And you hold some kind of record when you
Oh,
were writing
yeah.
for the Tribune. So you were telling me something about you had the city commissioner
Yeah,
and
so
the mayor and the city chief of police.
So I got the job with the Fort Pierce paper, and as I started writing it, and the response locally was really good. And they track you by newsstand sales.
Okay.
So my column came out on Friday, and newsstand sales immediately started going up. And so I kept hearing about it. For a while, I was the golden child. I would write different segments, like when the SKA brought the national tour here to Fort Pierce.
Okay.
I had the paper write. I had somebody writing about how much money it brought in. The business guy writing about how much money it brought in. I had somebody
Tying the
writing
whole
about different
thing together,
Yeah,
yeah.
and what it really brings
How it
to this
impacts.
town.
Yep.
And little projects like that sort of made me the golden child.
Okay.
And so I come in one morning, and we had a new editor who's there for about a month.
Okay.
And he goes, Mr. Holliday, it's my understanding that you set a record today. And I get called in to all the editors, and I thought it was
Still getting called to the principal's office.
Well, it was, and I thought it was like newsstand sales.
Yeah.
I thought they were gonna high five me, you know.
Right.
And
Not a good record.
no, it was. It's my understanding the mayor, the chief of police, and all the city commissioners called before 10 a.m.
Okay.
So it's a new record. They read my column, and I had written this column. So the Port of Fort Pierce used to be an argonite plant,
Okay.
and they had these big stacks where they filled it with argonite. They used it to make concrete,
Okay.
and the plant was going out of business, and they also had some oranges they shipped out of there as well. That was all going out of business, and they were trying to figure out what to do with the property. And they wanted to make it a commercial port. So I wrote this column, and I said, on the nicest day of the year, Fort Pierce is the armpit of the world, but it has the best water for 50 miles in any direction. Why wreck the one thing you have going for it? And I said, what you should do is buy it and make it a park and make it a place people can have fishing access, because they go there trying to fish anyway all the time and get thrown out. And allow dogs, because St. Lucie County doesn't allow dogs on your beach, so there's not really a lot of places you can take your dogs.
So to frame this, when was this?
So this is probably back in 03 or 04.
Okay, so somewhat recent. In recent times.
And I said, you got an aversion to dogs, so maybe you should allow dogs in this park. And I know it's kind of a high crime area, so build a donut shop, because nothing deters crime like that.
So you got 1 out of 2 so far.
Oh, everybody was everybody was pissed
shot in
at Mike. Everybody was pissed at Mike. It was
Shout out
funny.
Dixie Cream.
And I said, stupidly, well, at least they're reading the paper.
Right.
It means that we sold the paper to every one of those.
And just
it didn't go over too
paint it
well.
with a little bit. This was a Friday as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
So this was a 3 beer day?
It was probably a 5.
There you go.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. But look, man, I just say what I thought.
Right.
Yeah.
The most fun I ever had was writing my columns in that paper.
It's so funny you say that, because, you look at Fort Pierce now, and it is not that. You know what I mean? We walk up.
It's changed dramatically.
Incredible.
We've seen it in the past 12 years since we set up operation here for the brewery, and ever since we moved into what used to be the old J.C. Penney's a long time ago. It's kind of the positive impact we've had by being here has been substantial. I've seen it grow in a very positive way. We opened up 12 years ago down the street, 2 blocks down the road. It was still on that cusp of
little sketchiness right there.
Extreme sketchiness.
Yeah.
And in the past, really the past probably 6 or 7 years, the impact's been pretty substantial, and people are just starting to find this gem. Which if you are actually from Florida, been in Florida for a very long time, this is like the last part of old Florida that's kind of left out there.
It is, and it was always sort of a cattle town and a citrus town.
Yep.
And those industries are just sort of going by the wayside a little bit, particularly the citrus industry. So you start, the economy starts suffering, but people who live here, unfortunately, they opened their mouths and told everybody. And you come here, the place is beautiful. It still has the best water for 50 miles in any direction.
Oh, yeah. It's most dolphins you'll see just taken out. Yeah,
place is amazing.
Yeah,
amazing. And just the change is pretty crazy.
Well, the diversification of you can do fishing up here is amazing. Because I grew up in Homestead of Redlands. I fished out of Black Point. You ran across the reef and trolled, and that's back in the 80s. And trolling was very successful. We had solid weed lines back down there back then, and fish flamingo a lot back then too. It was very flourishing back in that during the 80s. And then you come up here, and when you're kind of one track minded, you have one style of fishing you're used to, and you get exposed to this area. Say Stewart up to Fort Pierce, up to Sebastian. There's so many different things you can do. And it's been honestly fun learning with it and fishing with people like yourself and other people in the industry here locally that are teaching just the different things you can do in this area and different species you can go after. It's really amazing.
If you travel a lot and fish, you realize how fortunate we are.
Oh, hands down.
You go to California and fish, and we're either going tuna fishing, or we're going yellowtailing. They're very limited. We got 3 or 4 species we can chase. Here, first off, you don't know. You put a bait out, you don't know what's eating it. And when you hook something, you don't know if something's going to eat that. Anything under 1,000 pounds at one time or another can be considered bait around this place.
Yeah, not all coasts are created equal.
And just the options. You can run offshore, and if offshore fishing's not great, 15 minutes later you're inside fishing or you're on the beach.
Right.
And just the number of species, the options there. You don't really see that in a lot of places.
My nephew goes to fishing camp in South Carolina every summer. It's his favorite thing in the world to do. And they go from basically Myrtle Beach to the offshore in North Carolina, because that's the only place where the ecosystem has variety. Otherwise, it'd just be like flounder in South Carolina, and that's about it.
And trout. We got a few trout.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very fortunate.
No, for sure. So
this whole area is very unique.
It is.
really from about Palm Beach to Sebastian is a probably the gem of Florida. You know, if you're an outdoorsman and you like everything from duck hunting to any style of hunting, really, surfing, any water sports, and if you live in Florida, you better like water.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Or you better like golf an awful lot, because that's all golf or pickleball. That's all you're playing.
Hey, we have 12 months of outside drinking.
We do have that.
I mean, nobody else really has that.
We do have that.
Yeah.
And then you put ice in your beer, it solves all the problems. So yeah, in the summertime.
Darn right.
Yeah. So let's kind of dive into Captain's Clean Water for a second. So our connection to Captain's is through Kenny. Kenny's been a part of that for a while. We started doing a beer for them for your guys' gala you do every
Specialty beer, yeah.
Yep.
It's amazing. For
awesome
the
label.
Restore East Gala.
Correct, and that actually led for us an introduction with Kenny from Andy, who runs Logger Marine Life Center, and that turned into a relationship with them as well too. And our focus being, really focus on conservation efforts that you can really get behind and are making an impact and see in the work that you put into it. So, tell us a little bit how long you've been involved with Captains. Obviously, what spurred that involvement.
Yeah, so I mean, the water issue has been a big issue. Even back when I was writing for the Fort Pierce Tribune, the water was an issue. Back in the it's a big issue in that, Lake Okeechobee used to flow, it was a shallow, almost like a bowl type lake, and it would overflow every year, and it would flow south through what was called the River of Grass all the way down to the Everglades. And as it flowed south, that water, the grass would filter the water, and it would clean it. It would flow like a mile and a half a day. So by the time it got down to the Keys, the water would be clean, and the water going into the Keys helped maintain that salinity balance that you get from evaporation from the Florida Bay. The water evaporating and getting too salty, that fresh water would keep it balanced.
Gotcha.
And then when they decided that they wanted to create real estate west of town in the Everglades area, they started drying those areas out. And when they did, billions of years of grass decaying creates this muck soil, which is 12 to 15 inches deep. That's probably some of the most fertile soil in the country. And people realize that, and then they started creating all these farms. They created this area called the Everglades Agricultural Area south of Lake Okeechobee, and just started putting farms there. At the same time, they diked the lake so that the water wouldn't overflow to control that. And the water's got to go somewhere, so
instead of going straight, it's going around.
So they dug it now. They dug canal to the coast. We never have fresh water from Lake Okeechobee ever. So in the 40s, they dug the St. Lucie Canal and started pumping it out the St. Lucie River. And you take a saltwater ecosystem and you start pumping fresh water in it, it's going to have an effect. And when you start pumping, there's no filtering aspect to it. So now you start pumping polluted water, pesticides, herbicides, nitrogen, phosphorus. A lot of the bad elements that flow down, plus all the decaying matter and dirt and stuff. It starts to have an impact. And over the years, I would see the difference in my fishery. And we never lost the grass, though. I mean, we would have billion gallons a day for 200 days, but the grass never died. And then, in about 2011, 2012, the grass died in 1 year. And I had written about it a lot, and I was a little bit active in that, but never really, an activist. And it's funny because I've said this several times. No, people don't start out, you don't grow up thinking I want to be an activist. You become an activist because there's something you love that gets destroyed, and you feel it's inherently wrong, and you either fight or you flee. And I'm not fleeing. This is my town. I care too much about it, and there's a solution, so I'm going to fight for that solution. And that's how I looked at all the different groups that were out there, and Captains for Clean Water seemed like the best one. They were not political. They fought for the solution, which was a comprehensive Everglades restoration plan, which is a suite of 68 different projects that will clean water, send most of it south to the Everglades, clean it before it goes there, the water coming to our coast will get cleaned as well before it comes. So at least the water coming in will be fresh.
Yeah, not
and
polluted or
it won't
anything.
be polluted, and the volumes will be decreased dramatically.
Okay.
So that it won't have these crazy impacts. All of a sudden, I'm enveloped in it.
And that fight's been going on since what? It was 2016 that they started. Daniel and Chris
Yeah,
got that
yeah,
going,
yeah,
and
yeah.
been fighting ever since. And you guys have had some substantial wins over this
Some
past,
great wins, yeah.
Years.
People ask all the time, what do Captains for Clean Water do? And the way you want to think of them is that they're the advocates out there. They're the ones who are thinking about watching everybody to see what they're doing, and then raising the public awareness of it. They're always fighting for Everglades restoration, but they're keeping an eye on the things that are sidetracking Everglades restoration. And this is a really good example. The Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan was implemented in 2000, and it was supposed to be a 20-year plan. By 2020, all those projects were going to be done. Those 68 projects were going to be done. In 2016, when Captains formed, I think 3 of the projects have been done. Out
Not
of the
surprising,
68.
but yeah.
But since then, like 26 of them have been done. You start putting pressure on the politicians. You start bringing to light the way that they take money away from projects and shift them to other projects, to
moving
pet
from one
projects.
pot to another.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's so many things that go on that just people aren't abreast to because no one's up there in Capitol Hill and Tallahassee
Exactly.
seeing
And-
what's going
and
on.
It's
So-
like what happened just recently for that park.
That's correct.
I mean, yeah.
parks
state
actually,
parks
but yeah.
all over the state.
Yeah, JD
Yeah.
was a big, John Diggs was a big part of that, and the one whistleblower who was at one when you worked for the environmental agency, they got fired because he kind of let it out there, and you wonder how much of that's going on. And recently, you guys have posted about the mining of the Everglades too.
Mining of the Everglades. So they want to build a mine just north of where the EAA reservoir will be. The EAA reservoir is the crown project of Everglades restoration. It'll take water from the lake, it'll clean the water and send it south. And they want to build this. They call it, a helpful reservoir next to it. 6,000 to 8,000 acres, but they're going to mine it 15 feet deep. First off, mining 15 feet deep in the Everglades, I don't think it's ever been
Best
done.
of luck for you, pal.
Well, they have that. I just remembered this. Growing up, we had a fishing camp out there in the Everglades, and I remember going out to those the quarries that were dug when they tried to put that airstrip in down there back in like the 40s or something like that.
They hit water and they all fill up.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great fishing spot, though. I mean, peacock bass, go out there, just got to watch out for alligators.
That's a great project until the hurricanes come.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, is it a private water supply?
Right.
I know. There's a lot of need for the elements for concrete. So digging the pits would provide substantial money. They're going to run rail cars to it and everything. It's soon and we got wind of it and we brought it up to let it out kind of into the public, and within a day or two they withdrew the whole application for it. So that's typically a sign that it's sketchy.
Well, it
and they
seems
don't
like
want
they
it in
want
front of the public.
Keep it hidden as long as they can.
That's what they always do.
Until the very last minute when people don't have time to react.
That's what
It's
they
already
always
done.
do.
Yeah.
Last minute it, and even if you want to react, you can't get people fired up and quickly enough.
Yeah.
That's, politics.
Yeah, for sure.
It's sad. And if the public's, if there's not a watchdog on top of it, they'll do it all the time. And I mean, this state has a history of it. At times it seems like everything's for sale.
It seems that way,
Yeah,
especially in Florida where
it's sad.
Yep.
That when you don't realize the value of the things you love, that you're willing to destroy the things you love for profit or greed is what I would say.
It's a short-term strategy.
Or the things that make us uniquely Florida.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, here's a good example: the amount of construction going on right now.
Yeah.
At some point in time, the things you love about your little town, it's not a small town anymore.
It changes
and
quickly.
For most
Yeah.
people in that business, it's like I got a buddy who's a contractor. I'm like, you don't need any more money, dude. You're driving a Land Rover.
Right.
You go to Vail at Christmas.
Right.
Do you need 2 Land? Like, what is it you're looking for, dude?
Next
Yeah.
year he's going to Supervale.
It's amazing if you get rid of greed in society, what it would
Yeah,
actually
they're
look
trying
like.
to do the
You
same
know,
thing
I mean,
out there.
When's enough's enough, you know?
It's sad, and you know, everybody who's grown up here, the simple things are what we really love about the place, and the nature, you know, just all of it. It's changed dramatically, and it keeps changing sort of for the worse.
Well, and just when you think that places aren't livable, here they are building, you know, skyscrapers basically.
And
That's the
when-
problem
and
with
there's-
Florida. Like,
Yeah.
If you can't go north, you go west, and you know it's how you're putting these developments in, and it's literally you're building on muck, and you're having to dig out, replenish. I mean, I was in construction before I started the brewery, and I've seen a lot of it happen. And it's just like you're out there, like, what the hell are we doing, guys?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there are certain municipalities that do a good job of it. Palm Beach Gardens, honestly, does a great job of mitigating development. If you know the impact you have to make, or I'm sorry, the attention you have to pay to how much you're impacting the land and actually displace or replenish what you've done. I mean, there's some municipalities that take it seriously and hold people accountable, but it controls growth in a positive way.
I'll tell you, who does a really good job is Vero Beach.
It's fair, yeah.
They
Right.
invest a lot of money in parks.
Yep.
I mean, if you want to go to a park, there's a lot, and there's really nice and, you know, big area parks there, and they invested early, you know, and as the area grew, that land's already a park. It's not going to be anything else. So you always have these empty spaces and this access to the water, access to nature, just access
And how
to.
tempting is to have, like, you know, some of the parks up there. Is it JC Park, the one right in Vero, the one on the beach? Whatever park it is, but it's you know, prime real estate.
Round Island's up there.
Yeah, yeah.
I used to duck hunt Round Island.
Oh,
a lot.
nice. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I can see that being a pretty good spot
It,
there.
it was amazing for
Yeah.
a long time. Yeah.
But Jupiter Juno kind of do, I think, a similar thing where they have kind of maintained the public
They
beaches.
created some really nice
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah.
with the little bit they got left, the natural areas, it's
Yeah.
awesome. You drive down US 1 as you go down to Loggerhead and you see that. And that was the biggest thing with this, you know, golf courses at Jonathan Dickinson. I'm right there on County Line in
Yeah,
Tequesta.
how many times you guys? I mean, you guys go out and camp at JD. You mountain
we,
bike out
we do
there.
a family
and-
camping
Everybody
trip. We
does.
bike
Yeah.
out there. I launched the boat out there. I fish
Yep.
up there. And, you know, when that came up the other week, it was just crazy, the support from the first day driving home. I drove by and the amount of cars out there.
Oh, there are
But-
tons of people picketing out there and just
but-
you know, raising awareness of
Yeah.
making people aware of what's going on.
And that's why we like living there, because our biggest thing is that they can't develop north of us. We are this little town, and it's not going to change, and our kids are going to grow up, and we're going to be able to ride 2.5, 3 miles to the park.
And it'll always be there.
It'll always be there. And then here they're going to put a golf course in there when I'm looking at a golf course across the street.
There's no lack
I
of
was-
golf courses.
you know,
I mean, listen, that's the thing. I cannot get over the argument of we need more golf courses. I mean, guys, at some point, I mean, you know, I granted there's a lot of private golf courses, but do we need more public ones? I
mean,
mean,
all
come
you
on,
gotta
guys,
do-
but it blows me away the amount of impact these golf courses have.
Yeah.
It's it's mind blowing.
We are in no shortage of golf courses.
Yeah, that's definite.
I mean, I get like the craze of pickleball, more pickleball courts. Man, just convert your tennis courts to pickleball courts. Call it a day.
Rufus Wakeman put it really, really well. It's the last piece of undeveloped land between Stewart and the Keys
That's true.
on the coast.
Yeah,
that's a-
think about it. Yeah, that's 100% true. And I get to drive by it every morning. I
That's
love
amazing.
it. You know, I see hawks. There's an
I see
eagle's
a
nest
deer
there
out
right
there
now.
all the time.
Deer, hogs. You know, I tell my kid when I come home, I'm like, oh, I saw an alligator off Bridge Road. You know, I saw a group of deer off the side of the road there, all in the park area.
Yep.
And it's, you know, some mornings we'll take the boat and we'll launch it up in the park and, you know, go chase those little tarpon and stuff. And that drive, it's 15, 20 minutes, and you feel like you're, you know, made the 3-hour drive down to the Everglades.
Well, I think people too, they don't realize or comprehend that like you can reach a ceiling or a cap for an area. Like,
Yeah.
this is the biggest we're
Sure.
going to get. That's okay. Let that be what it is.
Right.
Why do you need to make it more? Just go find another
Well,
place.
yeah.
It's what is the purpose to exhaust every single resource here, so you can build more houses, more condos, more golf courses, more hardscape everywhere? It makes no sense.
It's okay to have wild spaces.
It's okay. Exactly. Accept that.
It's okay to stand in the grass barefoot.
Yeah.
I kind of like it.
Listen, if you desperately want to live there, just wait. I'm sure you'll find something available one day.
Well, let the five
But, I
cities
mean,
who love that stuff have them. Let us have Florida.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, I mean, you know, going back, like I said earlier with Kenny, and I kind of skipped over that briefly, so I apologize. But you know, Kenny, your initial involvement with captains and kind of how that started back in your career prior to the brewery, and and kind of where that guy, because you're kind of the reason we're involved as much as we are.
Yeah, I guess it goes back to, I mean, I was in the beer business for a while, and I took a little hiatus after having the kid and just kind of, got burnout. I know the last episode you guys kind of talk about beer burnout or just industry burnout.
Fatigue,
Fatigue, yeah. Took a little step away, and I got into like the kind of sport fish parts business, my buddy Eric, and who I make a beer, or we label a beer for too down there. And through him, he knows my love for fishing, but my love for beer brought me back up here. And he reached out.
We're very happy to have you.
Thank you very much. But as captains, decided to do an East Coast Gala, which right down there in Jupiter, which is my backyard, Eric's backyard from Sportfish, and he was on the board with Weston, and they needed a beer sponsor, and so the phone call came our way, and I saw Mike Holliday on the email list or the contact list to reach out, and kind of starstruck because I've watched him on the Florida Insider Fishing Report, read all these things he's talked about. I was like, well, I get to talk to an idol in this neighborhood, It's someone I've always looked up to from a distance.
Then you realize it's full of crap as anyone else.
You all are, but...
And now Kenny's got everywhere wearing a Bahia sunglasses now. So
that too, now. But it was awesome to reach out and just, as soon as we talked, we were like best friends pretty much. And, it took us 2 years to fish together, but didn't need to. And, it was great just... That first event, I got the cases of beer to you. I dropped them off. I think Dan helped me unload the truck, and everybody was just awesome at the event. And me and my wife went there and sat down, and, I'm looking over and I see Rufus and I see, C.A. Richardson, I watched him on TV with Flats Class and, just all these other guys. And I ran into people now with social media you kind of feel like you're friends with, but you've never really met, and got to see really the whole fishing industry make that travel to our neighborhood when I'm typically traveling to fish in their neighborhood in the Everglades or the West Coast or up in Tampa or something like that. And that really that day was a very big eye-opener how important this was and how much it meant to everybody, just like Mike talking. And what was funny is everyone loves the Captains of Clean Waters hats. And I'm sitting at the table, and I got black hats. The table behind me has these cool brown leather hats, and I'm eyeing it. And this guy behind me taps me.
Wait for someone not to sit down. I'm going to take that chair and take that hat. Yeah.
My wife's like, grab one. I'm like, no, I got to do this the right way. It's not in me. And the guy taps me on the shoulder behind me, and he's drinking a Sunrise City. I dropped off one case of IPA, one case of, I think, Tag and Release, and wanted to make sure we had a little variety on top of it. And he's like, oh, hey, he's like, you want that black hat? I'm like, nah, not really. I kind of want that brown hat. And I'm like, you're drinking Sunrise? He goes, yeah, unfortunately, it's the last one. I was like, no, I think I drank the last one before you. Right. But that's what I was drinking along with the Captain's Lager. And introducing himself to me, his name's Andy, and he runs Loggerhead Marine Center. Right. So you go from one conservative event to another guy that's really big into conservation. And said that wrong the first time.
All good.
But we're a couple beers into it, just like we are now, and we started talking, and that just developed this really cool relationship where email chain started again, and we ended up getting some of the guys down at Loggerhead, and we started talking about a new beer, and that's how the Hazy IPA, if you guys can see it in the corner over here, kind of popped up. Just kind of sticking with conservation and keeping it local, and just, another beer lover.
Yeah, and the same thing, just raising awareness, making people aware of it, the mission, what they're trying to do. Very similar to Captains, of just getting the exposure out there and exposing people to the challenges that we face, and exposing them to what's going on they may not know about. And going back to how precious this area we have down here, and how lucky we are to have this area. I mean, we're so unique, especially if you grew up down here or have spent the good part of your life down here. I grew up, like I said, down in the Redlands. How many kids grow up, go fish flamingo or fish out of Black Point every weekend with their dad, and Dylan, he's 5, right?
Yeah, almost 6 now.
Almost 6. I mean, that kid's probably caught more fish than at least Brian and I at the table.
Yeah,
here.
it's pain in my
certainly
butt
more than me.
But that kid, I mean, he's, he probably doesn't realize it now, but how much of how fortunate he is to have that experience. And we're talking about something that could potentially go away that we're fighting against. Yeah. And, just having his access to that, what you've exposed him to. And that's really, you talk about the next generations we're trying to preserve this for, and our kids and our grandkids. Like, we want everybody else to still experience this and not have it be exhausted in our lifetime. It needs to be prolonged for a very long period of time to still give Florida the opportunity to flourish as it is and not be overrun or destroyed and have the parts of Florida stricken away from it.
So you get it, man. And you kind of downplay your involvement, but I think it needs to be brought up that these things don't happen without businesses being involved.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And getting involved and making a difference, not because they have to, but because they can, and because they're the ones who actually have the money or the will, the ability to help.
Yep.
And have a bigger impact. And what a lot of people don't realize is the long-term impact that has on their business. Because some businesses get involved in conservation as a way to, just kind of win over people. They know youth is, really picky about conservation, and people that support their causes, they tend to support those businesses. So businesses will get involved just to win them over. But it's the certain businesses will realize that what they really get out of it is sort of a purpose to their life and a purpose to their business. For most people who go to work, they work a job to make money for a company, for some guy who they don't know how much he even makes, but they don't get that. Their pride is just in the product they produce. But they don't really have that purpose in life that helps everybody. When you're involved in conservation and you involve your business and everybody knows about it at the business and they become proud of it. Like when you see the changes, we help stop this, we help do this. Now they have a purpose to their jobs, and when they do, they're more likely to stay with that company. They're more likely to enjoy their job, and if they stay with the company, then you don't have to spend the money hiring. You save a lot of money as a company by retaining your employees. And overall, everybody has a purpose now to their life, and they just love their jobs. And you see it in companies that get involved in conservation for the right reason. Some of the ones that just kind of greenwash their way in.
No, you can see through it. You can see the BS of it all.
There's no soul to it.
You have to legitimately care, and you're not doing it for any reason. Like sailfish could go away, you're still going to be involved, no matter what. And it kind of just goes back to like the environment we try to create here. It's the same thing.
That's super important, and it needs to be highlighted, and people need to support that.
And we don't jump into these things lightly. You know what I mean? It's like these things, they have to matter to us, like in the ethos of who we are and what we're about. If you've not seen a hatchling event at Loggerhead Marine Life, you don't see how incredibly important it is for those turtles to be actually get into the ocean, and all the efforts that
undisturbed,
and all the things, the environmental.
You're out there with your night vision goggles on, watching them enter the water. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I felt like I was like SEAL Team 6. You had those goggles on. You're watching this leatherback. I mean, they don't even have leatherbacks at Loggerhead. It's not a turtle that they rehabilitate, but you're seeing this baby leatherback go right into the ocean, and all the challenges environmentally, all the other things that they have going on, and that's something that's important to us. It's even that much more fun to sell that beer. Yeah.
Exactly. And it, again, impacts your life.
Right.
Impacts the lives of all the people around you. And for the people, the employees there, they look at it sort of like, my job matters.
Right.
It makes life better for my friends, for my family, for people I don't even know.
Right.
And that's really rare in life, man.
Yeah.
You don't see that in a lot of things. You see it in the medical field where people are helping save people's lives. But for most people, that's just not something you see in your daily life. And it's a missing component. You hear people all the time talking about working somewhere, and I like my job, but something, they know something's missing. They don't have that component to it, the purpose to it.
Right.
So you should be applauded for it.
No, I appreciate it, Mike. It's not something, like Brian said, we take lightly. And I'd like to say I want to be part of some more of these accomplishments you guys have going on, and just getting into it for ourselves. Kenny's been doing it for a long time. Very fortunate that he made the introduction with you, and that's flourished from here. And just I guess that's the question is like, what can people do? You have the membership program. You have the material you can buy. You have the raffles you guys run. Obviously, a lot of it's money to support, lobbying up in Tallahassee. Yeah.
The money is good if for the people who have it.
Yeah.
The bigger thing is to know the issue, is to go to captainsforcleanwater.org, sign up, get the email. They don't bomb you with emails.
Yeah, they're pretty good about just the important stuff.
When something comes up, there's an issue. They send an email out so the public can get active.
Yeah, they're increasing their family so they can make more people aware.
And they make it easier for you to respond to that. here's who you need to write. They give you all the information, or just click on this and fill it out, and tell them you're against this issue. But really, that's what's had the biggest impact overall, is the public becoming aware of the issues and standing up. All the politicians, their only job is to get reelected, right? And they can make as much money as they want. They can take as much money under the table they want, but they still can't get reelected without somebody voting for them.
Exactly.
And when people are pissed, they're not voting for them.
Very true.
So it does have an impact. And a lot of the stuff, the dealings before used to happen without us knowing about it. And now Captain's there's several organizations that are there watching, and those sneaky backdoor deals don't happen very often because of that. And when they come to light, public input changes it, and that's the most important thing. And the golf course issue at Jonathan Dickens Bar was a really good example. The public lost their minds.
Unanimously.
And people couldn't backpedal fast enough.
But what stories like that do for me in a positive way is the guy, and I forget his name, I apologize, but that was the kind of made everybody aware of what was going on behind closed doors. It reinforces you in the day and age we're in sometimes, or now. There's great people out there still that just they will do
care.
things.
It's not about money. It's not about
money,
anything.
their job, whatever it is. They will sacrifice all that for the greater good.
To do what's right.
Exactly, and that was a really reassuring thing. That guy should be extremely applauded for taking that stand and coming out. And I'm out into more about beyond that. I apologize, but it's
that guy created a GoFundMe page.
Yeah, I saw that
and made over $200,000.
Did he create it, or did somebody make it for him?
I don't know who.
I
made
think someone made it for him.
He was trying to raise $10,000,
Yeah.
and he's at over $200,000, which is, to me, it shows the public support.
Yeah.
And like, he should get rewarded for doing what's right.
100%.
He should actually get his job back, and whoever fired him should lose their
What
job.
a concept, getting rewarded for doing what's right.
That's
not
sounds
seeing
like the
that many.
sailfish ambassador to me, Dave.
If you could see that more in the political world today, it would be great.
Yeah.
It's the political spectrum's changed so much.
Yeah.
And I almost hate talking about it. Things that go on today, even back in the 70s and 80s, you would go to jail for,
Right.
or get charged with treason for some of the things that go on. And now it's just the money in politics, and everybody has their own personal agenda.
Right.
And everybody's financed by, the big ones, the big pharma, big sugar, big ag, big pharma, big insurance, big tobacco, like big oil, energy, all that stuff they're the ones who make all the decisions and put the money up that
That's what people,
creates
I
our
think,
politicians.
they don't always see it all the times. It's not the actual politicians or with an agenda. A lot of times it's negative. They're just getting influenced by these larger corporations that have their own agenda, and
That's correct.
they have enough money to lobby, pay off, whatever it takes.
But it used to be illegal to do that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And it should be illegal again.
Yep.
And that's the point. Here's an idea. If you took money, any money that you want to donate to politics goes in a pot, and everybody gets the same amount of money. So they all have the same amount of money to spend. They all have to run on the issues. And that money can only be so much. It can't be a crazy.
I think people would be 100% behind that, like they were against that damn golf course.
Exactly.
Yeah, the people
It was
would
the
be.
only thing that was there was no contrarian.
the
if
other-
you bring up anything, there's usually contrarian. It's like, this is a great beer. Well, I think it's bad. Well, like that was the only thing where it was like we all hate that.
Well, and I think everything requires some kind of like paradigm shift, and
Right.
it's like the boiling pot. Eventually, it's going to blow, and I think we're getting closer and closer to that point.
Pendulum
of
is
like,
swinging, yeah.
something's got to happen
Seeming
soon.
that way.
It's just public outcry, communication, the making people rallying the troops, similar to like I said with the Jonathan Dixon Park situation a few weeks ago. How quickly people were to come to arms, rally up real quick.
Changed it in a week.
Agreed, and like I think we're at that point of like people are just getting so exhausted with just being taken advantage of and not told the truth, and just treated like we're just not paying attention or don't care what's going on.
Yeah.
We're so focused on other things or distracted.
So when I grew up, I always believed politicians were elected to vote the will of the people, and I don't feel like they vote the will of the people anymore. I feel like
We're all voting for a haircut.
well.
That's what I feel like.
It's
It's like This guy uses gel. This guy uses.
Well,
Yeah.
so we're supposed to live in this democratic society,
Right.
So, why can't we vote with our cell phones, or why can't we just vote? Why can't we put the big issues?
They tried that with American Idol. Didn't really work out.
How about we put the big issues on the ballot?
Right.
Whatever that issue is.
Oh,
let's
yeah.
let's pick.
I'm for that,
Let
yeah.
me pick the first one. Term limits. Let's
All
put that
in.
on the ballot and let's see what happens.
All in.
Oh,
yeah.
I think everyone agrees on that one.
Well,
Right.
how can everyone
Who's
agree
gonna
about
disagree
it,
But
with that?
nothing's going to change.
but it can't
Sorry,
get on the
sorry.
ballot?
Exactly.
Right.
But it's never brought up.
98% of people that aren't in the office.
There you
agree
go.
on it. There you go.
So I mean that's a good
That's
example.
a really great example. Yeah.
Well, you can see, I think you see the trend coming. You see a lot of younger people running for office now, and I think we're going to see those things change. Don't want to get too
I think everybody goes
political
into
here.
it. They have the
Yeah.
best of
But-
intentions. I have a firm
They
belief
always do. They always
but
do.
you get into a thing and you have to kind of work within that. You have to be a cog in that wheel, and you can't work against it to get nothing done. And I think that's a big part of it too.
So I don't know if you know this. I ran for county commissioner one time.
Did you?
Yeah, I think it was my
For
midlife
Martin County?
crisis.
You just
Yeah.
went to do everything cool. Lifeguard,
How many
rider,
different lives
fishing
did
boat
Mike over there?
captain.
Dude,
Did you build motorcycles at some point? I mean, did a lot of cool stuff.
I've ridden a lot of motorcycles.
There you go. See, that's even cool.
Yeah, and thank God I didn't get elected because I'd have been the worst one in the world because I just can't keep my mouth shut. I got to say something. Things that bother me just bother me, and
Yeah.
I gotta tell you they're bothering me.
But that's a trait lost in so many people now.
Well, that's why we don't get
We're in such a
politicians.
salesman society where you're always trying to sell to somebody.
Yeah.
No one sells the truth. They don't speak their mind. And how refreshing it is to have an honest conversation with somebody.
Here's what I want to. Here's what I want to hear politicians say. I want to hear you ask a question. How do I feel about abortion? Right. I want to hear the politician go. What does it matter how I feel about abortion?
Right.
I'm elected to vote what you think and
Right.
represent you. How do you feel about it? That's how. I want to hear a politician say that once.
Majority rules.
Not.
He's there to.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, he's there to represent his
Well,
people.
Why does it matter how I feel? I'm
Right.
one vote.
Right.
I think
let's-
people don't fully I shouldn't generalize that. There's confusion out there of how the political system works and how it's actually supposed to work, and we are the power.
Yeah,
and
we are the power.
We forget that a lot of times.
Exactly.
Time
Social media really changed that a lot
no,
too.
yeah, and both a negative, but I think the positive's going to come with that soon, with that pressure cooker building. But one thing I want to talk about too, which was pretty recent for you guys, was the Lake Okeechobee management.
Losum.
Losum.
Yeah.
So tell us about that, 'cause that's pretty to me that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it was a huge step. So there's a management plan for the lake. Every they change it every. I can't remember if it's every 5 or every 10 years, but I think it's every 10 years. They
Mike,
change.
do you need another beer with
I
ice?
would love another beer with
Oh,
ice.
yep.
And so they have
we need
this.
a lager with ice in it.
They have this
You
management
know what?
plan.
I'll have a lager with ice in it as well.
4 lagers
Yeah.
with ice in it. Sorry, Kenny, I ordered for you.
That's all good. I'll take it.
Swapping you
We
guys
call
over.
those at the brewery the Captain Mike.
There you go.
Like that.
So
To say on holiday, but
On,
Oh, God, look at Kenny, man. Come in,
I don't
Side
have
note,
many
while
great
we're,
ideas.
while we're waiting for our beers, Kenny's actually the person who trained me in this line of work.
Wait, what?
In beer sales.
How many-
I
what-
have heard
what-
this story, but
what
please
year was
tell
that?
it.
That was 2010, 2009-ish.
Sounds about right. Yeah, about 15 years ago.
Yeah, and it was the shortest training I've ever gotten in my life. It was about 7 hours.
I'm quick to the point.
He's like, hey, here's what you do. I got to go. And actually, it was the best training I've ever gotten because it was direct to the point. He goes, this isn't hard. You seem smart enough. I can't tell right away, but you seem smart enough. Bop, 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 bop. I got to go. And then I saw him like 6 months later. But I wanted to get in this line of work because of Kenny. I was bartending in Wellington at the time.
What was the place called again? I'm trying-
Smoky Bones.
Smoky Bones. There we go.
Yes.
You would harass me every time I come in there to sell beer. What do you got? What's new?
I go, hey, I'm dying here. Can you get like I've got 6 Yingling lines, dude. Can we get
God.
something? Yeah. And Kenny was sales, line cleaning, and delivery. And
Craft
I mean,
beer was at its like what do you say?
That was
Infancy.
a Dale's Pale Ale.
beyond
Yeah, yeah.
infancy.
Like we were
And
talking earlier, Dale or Oscar Blues, Rogue, Dogfish Head.
It was
Well, that's what we started. Was 12 years ago there wasn't
Sea
beer.
Dog,
Yeah.
Sea Dog Blueberry.
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, that was it.
It was so to like full circle moment to be back here. It's awesome.
Yeah.
You can cut all that out, Nate.
But going back to
Or
that point,
preparation.
speaking of both Kenny and Brian, organizations are nothing without the people. And I know that sounds very cliche to say that, but
it's super important.
but the right people.
That's
and
correct.
the people make an impact and a positive impact. And we're very, very fortunate. Brian's been with us almost 2 years now.
Yep.
The impact he's had on the sales team has been tremendous. Kenny's been with us for 3.5.
Yeah, 3.5.
3.5 years.
Yeah,
now.
4 will be January or February 1st will be 4 years. Yeah, 3.5.
But the impact Kenny's made, him and Dave Cavassini back there. I mean, the ship they run is tight, and it's not it's not rocket science or rocket surgery, however people say it nowadays. But just being consistent, telling the truth all the time, being honest. It's like, guys, listen, I don't care what the problem is. Just tell me the damn truth. We'll figure it
Right.
out. We're making beer, guys. We're not creating rocket surgery. But how impactful these two guys are, and obviously other members of our team too, Taylor, Gabe, Tori. I mean, some great people that impacted. But that's it. That is selfish.
Right.
And that's it's the people, and you guys, whether you know it or not, the impact you guys have in this company is tremendous, and you're the reason where we're at, and you're the reason the culture is where it's at as well too.
I'd be more worried about them drinking up the product.
That's not a concern. So
It's a pirate ship back there. I don't know what he was saying. I mean, it's a well-run
yeah,
pirate
they
ship.
treat me like a mushroom half the time. So yeah, it's just,
Hilarious if we had a guy with one hand.
Let's not wish that
And a
upon
parrot.
anybody.
So
We can make the parrot happen.
digressing back to the Okeechobee.
Oh, to load some things.
Yeah.
So there's a 10-year management plan on how high they keep the lake level. And historically, they keep the lake in the winter, which is the dry season, they keep the lake very high.
Okay.
And it's so that the ag areas around the lake, which basically
boy.
translates to sugar, have a
Awesome.
water supply.
Okay. It's like
so
the irrigation system.
They have a free water supply.
Gotcha.
Government
Funded,
sponsored
yeah.
water supply. Which, if you ask any farm if they would
Miranda.
like a free water supply, everybody's in that line. Mm-hmm. Most farms have to make their own reservoir and create their own water supply. But no, they got the lake. So they were really the only ones who had any say in this management plan. So the lake, the Army Corps of Engineers who runs it, would kind of side with them. That was the only public input. So they would keep the lake artificially high in the winter. So, when we get to summer, if the lake's too high,
That's
if
when it
we've had a
moves.
wet winter, then we get rain, and then we got to get discharges.
Mm-hmm.
They came up with alternative plans to keep the lake lower, send more water to the Everglades in the winter, which is when they really need it, and dramatically decrease the amount going to the coasts. So through the plan, it just got approved. It took about 3 years for them to run the simulations and all to come up with a concept. And the final concept that they did, they just approved now. So it'll run for the next 10 years. It'll reduce the amount of water going to our coast by discharges by about 37%.
Wow, that's impressive.
So that's a significant number.
Exactly.
And then if you knock out when the EAA reservoir is done, which should be 5 to 8 years, that'll knock another 60%. And then some of these other projects knock a percent off
you're
here and there.
89%,
You get
and it adds up.
you start building that number
Yeah.
to where you're not getting the volumes you're getting.
And that's one of the things you talked about when we were fishing, the resiliency that nature is. And
It is.
just
It comes
give
back
that
right away,
opportunity,
man.
Yeah.
All it needs is a good environment to live in. Grass, it'll grow.
Yeah.
It just needs sunlight, and clean water is kind of important for that.
With the grass regrowth that we want to occur is going to occur.
We're seeing it right now. We're seeing it.
But that happens just naturally. You don't go plant grass out
Well,
there
you-
to kind of
so you-
jumpstart it, or
You can't right now because we still get releases.
okay,
So anything you plant
Destroyed.
is going to probably get destroyed.
gotcha.
If we get a big hurricane or whatever and they got to dump water, it'll probably get destroyed.
Okay.
And what's interesting is the last couple of years we've lost our Spartina grass, not just the seagrass. Which Spartina is a very healthy grass. It's very freshwater tolerant. It's very saltwater tolerant, but it's not very herbicide
Tolerance.
tolerant.
Gotcha.
Right.
So it seems there's multiple problems going on right now. I know they're spraying quite a bit of herbicide on Lake Okeechobee,
Right.
defoliating that lake. So again, the plants filter everything. It's the same with the seagrass. The seagrass filters the water. The oysters filter the water. They're pretty important besides providing habitat, and they provide
And all
food
this water is going
and
down
everything.
to a nice aquifer that's right underneath the Everglades.
Right under the Everglades.
That's
Well-
pretty much our water
well,
supply.
And I mean, going back to that idea that they want to build a mine out there, you're talking about building a mine on 6,000 to 8,000 acres of what's supposed to be some of the most fertile land in this country.
No, I mean, I'm living down there.
What's the purpose behind that? There's an alternative purpose if you're doing that.
Right.
I remember living down there and the amount of coral rock we had. I mean, I remember my dad had some guy drill post holes one day to put a fence in, and the guy chewed up like five drill bits that day. I mean, it's that hard a rock down
Yeah.
there, but it's actually a filtration system.
Very
That's
porous.
Yeah, and it's a filtration system. That's the reason.
Well, and
I'd
they,
pay any amount of money to see that guy go through 5 drill bits.
that's all.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
they don't really know what's going to happen if they dig 15 feet. It's never really been done in that area. And below it's the aquifer. Now, are we impacting the filtration? And now polluted water can get in the aquifer,
How would we
which
not-
is our
not
drinking
chance
water.
it and not do that. So yeah,
There's so many red flags. It's pretty crazy.
no, it definitely is.
Just don't touch it. Let it do what it's supposed to do.
Exactly.
What a concept, right? So, water flowing down the state. So, you think the amount of development, the amount of farmland going on in the center of the state, it's not abundant enough that water can still freely flow down.
It flows to an extent, but not at the extent it did. So let's just go from Okeechobee to the Everglades. About 35% of the water that historically flowed there flows there now.
Okay.
So I mean, you can see the dramatic decrease. Now, as that water would flow, it would also percolate into the ground and recharge the aquifer. The aquifer for Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties,
Yep.
which are
Yeah.
not only giant but growing.
Yeah.
Like they might need that water coming up here pretty soon.
Well, they're already having
They might be-
saltwater intrusion problems.
There you
down
go.
south.
So they're starting to miss the water already.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Nature makes a resilient system. You can't make a better system than nature did. There's a reason for everything like that happening. And when we start messing with it, we always have an impact. And how dramatic that impact is, we just need to pay attention. It gives us the signs. When you lose the largest seagrass meadow in the world is in Florida Bay, and you lose 50,000 acres of seagrass, might be a problem going on here. Might want to pay attention.
Yeah.
And seagrass, it's underwater, but it also impacts our environment. It eats up a lot of carbon. It sends oxygen into the air. Eats up carbon dioxide.
Not only
it's a
hatchery
plant. It
for
has
like
it's important for our lives as well.
Yeah, it's
we
if
should
people
just
can't
start
see it
paying
sometimes.
attention
They
to
don't
some
pay
of that
attention to
stuff.
it. And
Yeah.
It's exposing people to it. So, anything else, Mike? You want to talk about today that we already covered?
No, man, life's good.
That's
Life is good.
awesome.
We're all living the dream.
I have to tell you, I never thought
We're
I
drinking
would, I
beer,
would be
doing a
guy who has
podcast,
ice
talking
in his
about
beer.
conservation.
Dude,
And here I am with ice in my beer, and
guys.
it's lovely.
it's pretty refreshing, right?
I'm not upset.
It's like you're on a holiday.
Like I'm on holiday.
So look, on holiday. Let's go with that.
I like it.
I many years ago I pitched a TV show to ESPN called On Holiday because my last name's Holliday.
Right.
And I would take the summer, take my family, take an RV with an ATV and a boat on back, and travel around the country, and do shows on places in this country. I always saw all the fishing shows always go
Right.
to these exotic places. So, I looked at it like this. I've got 3 kids, a wife and 3 kids, so anywhere I'm going is 5. I'm paying for 5.
Right.
Exotic places for 5. Ooh.
But there's
Well,
so many
that's
places
probably
in
not
the
happening.
United States that
It's
you
like the
can
Bill
go
Dan
to.
show.
And every time I go somewhere in this country, I always made it a point that I take my family on vacation somewhere every year.
Okay.
We go on vacation. And for my kids, I never realized how fortunate they were. But by the time they started getting into college, and there were friends who were like, yeah, where I always wanted to go is Jackson Hole. And my daughter would go, oh, I've been there. Or I want to go to St. Bart's. Oh, I've been there. I want to go to Cancun. I've been there. I want to go to Bahamas. I've been there. They realized how worldly they actually
Right.
were and how many places they'd actually been, but also how many really cool places in this country. There's so many places
People
in
take
this
it for
country
granted. There's so
Yeah.
many places to go to.
that are amazing that nobody speaks about. That I thought it was really important, but ESPN didn't.
No,
I mean,
I don't think they wanted to take you to Twin Lakes, Colorado.
They probably saw what my budget was going to be for
Right.
beer.
Right. They were also shelling out all that money for Bill Dance at the time, too,
Just
bro.
repitch that, and we'll be the beer
Dude,
sponsor.
a
Everybody solve it.
motorhome with 3 kids. Oh my God.
Well, when you see me on YouTube in a couple months doing this, you don't know where the idea came from.
You go-
because
please.
You don't need ESPN anymore.
Take
Yeah.
it and run, because maybe
Yeah.
it'll go now. They don't need to see an old guy.
There
anymore.
was a time about a year ago we were doing like the marketing plan for like 22 or 23, and Mr. Boucher over there is like,
I hope
"Do
it
you
wasn't
think
22.
2022?"
Yeah, a year ago, you were planning for 22?
Well,
Just
we
playing.
were, yeah, you know.
Semantics.
It's all
My
a blur.
tackles are
I was
kicking in.
planning in reverse. No, Dave's like, "Do you think I should buy like a little Winnebago or like a van, and like you, me, Gabe, and a couple other guys, we could just go across the parks of Florida?" I go, "That sounds awesome." And then it was like, no, it doesn't.
It's just time.
Yeah.
It's just.
I like it would be boys club for about a week, and then we'd all end up
That'd
hitting
be a
each other.
stinky van.
Yeah. Oh, you ain't kidding, pal. Yeah.
Well, Mike, Kenny, really appreciate you guys being on today. Learned a lot.
Love it, man. Thanks for having me.
You know, just want to continue the effort. However, any way we can help, obviously, we're here. Going to continue the support for the gala on the East Coast with that beer and anything else we can do. Obviously, we want to jump in there and help. So
Let's get out on the water again.
I'd love to.
Let's get you out on the water, man.
Oh, I'm about that life.
See, if
We
can-
need to introduce Mike to Emily. She's the
Yeah.
one talking about blowholes and
She is.
squirts and- yeah.
She is the. She's queen angler of our crew. Yeah.
I just want you guys to catch more fish than Kenny's 5-year-old kid.
That's not possible.
I don't
Not
know, man.
Dylan's a stud.
Hey, that's my goal. in
Yeah.
life.
Well, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Again,
Cheers,
thanks for
man.
being on today, guys.
This
Thanks,
is awesome.
Mike.
Incredible.
Great sitting next to a local legend, you guys. Right.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us today. Florida's Drinking Report with Kenny Sincere and Mike Holliday talking about our next favorite thing to do, which is fishing and conservation, and just talking about all the efforts Captain's Clean Water have done and you know the positive impacts they've made. So, thanks again for listening. Until next time, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers, tight lines.
Cheers.
See you guys.
Woo! Man, I'm serious about this ice and beer.
Dude, it's
good.
game changer.
Game changer.
It's all about the right beer.